In this program, you're going to learn how to sense and interpret your partner's qi and how to project specific kinds of qi to restore balance. I've taught these methods to tens of thousands of people. Many of my students are ordinary people from diverse professions. They just want to be of more help to family and to friends. Some students learn these methods because of what it teaches them about these subtle and mysterious energies of life. They're interested in qi. I've also trained many healthcare professionals, including physicians, who add qi assessment techniques and qi healing techniques to their therapeutic repertoire. But I want to emphasize that we are exploring skills that were once common to all of humanity. This system is based on the following principles. The healer practices qigong regularly to become a more centered, sensitive, and effective healer. Your attitude is of prime importance. Qi carries information. It carries your caring and your compassion. If you have a loving and caring attitude, your energy will be healing even if you make a mistake in your assessment or a mistake in your treatment. Be confident in the healing power of love. Stay connected with the energies of life by breathing gently. Imagine that your feet are sunk and rooted into the ground. This will also keep you connected. Your caring attitude and centered being create a healing resonance in your partner. It's like one tuning fork causing another to vibrate with it in harmony. According to Chinese medicine, the body is a product of energy. Qigong masters believe that when you treat your partner's energy, you are affecting all of the body's biochemicals, all of the body's tissues, and all of the structures. Now we're ready to begin actually learning qi assessment. But in order to practice this, you need to first understand the most essential principle in both assessment and treatment, and that is called in Chinese de qi, which literally means reaching or attaining the qi. Now this refers to the principle that the healer needs to energetically reach in and touch the life current. When we practice qi healing, the client, your partner, patient is always going to be fully clothed. But clothing does not interfere with the healer's ability to sense the qi. The trick is really a switch in consciousness, that you want to imagine that your hand is reaching through the clothing, through the skin, through the various tissues that cover the life energy. Now, this might seem somewhat abstract at first, but with practice, everyone is able to feel this. It might take a little bit of time. For instance, if I was doing a treatment, say on a sore shoulder, then I would hold my hand near the area that needs treatment, but of course I don't want to be treating the surface. I'm not treating the clothing or the skin. I'm mentally reaching through. Once I have tapped that current, then I am practicing de qi or reach the qi. The same principle is used in all of the energy healing arts. For instance, in acupuncture, when you insert the needle into an acupuncture point, the therapist looks for the feeling that he or she is on target. Target doesn't simply mean locating the point accurately. It also means reaching in at the proper depth so the needle is touching the life current. In massage, the same principle. Let's say I was massaging the shoulder area, the trapezius muscle, and I reach in and feel that there's resistance. Well, there's two possibilities what I could do here. One is that I continue driving my way through the tension, hoping that I will reach the place of relaxation, reach that life energy. That actually is not a very effective way to de qi. Instead, I hold my thumb at the point where I start to encounter some resistance. Now, right now, actually, I'm not quite on the qi. I haven't de qi. But by holding there and sensitively listening and reaching through, I'm creating a sense of trust because I'm respecting my partner's boundaries. And as he relaxes and releases, my thumb starts to penetrate more deeply until with only my change in consciousness, no change in pressure, I'm on the qi. Now I've de qi. In China, it's quite common for the therapist, whether it's a massage therapist or an acupuncturist, to even ask the client, de qi le meo? Am I on the qi? And because the client is familiar with the qi sensation, because so many people practice qigong, then they can reply, yes, you're on the qi, or no, you're not. So in massage therapy, in acupuncture, and of course in qi healing, de qi is essential, because if you're not on the current, you can't be affecting it. So keep thinking as we practice these various techniques that you're going to energetically reach through. You can change the depth of treatment through your depth of awareness without necessarily changing what you are physically doing. And this concept is, again, de qi, reaching the qi, touching the life current. Now we're ready to apply the principle of De Qi to the actual assessment methods. The first method of assessment uses the hands actually on the body. This is the only time that I teach a hands-on technique as part of Qi assessment. The hands are going to be placed on the spine itself because the spine is your body's major highway for electrical and Qi messages. So we want to get a sense of the overall quality of qi by placing the hands on the spine. The hands are placed on two specific points. One of them is called the Da Chui. It's an acupuncture point that is just under the large vertebrae that you can sense when you lower your head. There's a vertebrae that sticks out, that's your seventh cervical. You want to take one hand and place it just under that vertebrae. You don't have to be anatomically exact because your hand can cover a broad area. We're making contact with that point, which gives us a kind of reading of the qi in the spine and also provides pleasant stimulation over an important acupuncture point, which feeds the lungs. That is, it stimulates the qi and balances the qi of the lungs. It also helps to strengthen the qi current that flows under the skin, what the Chinese call the protecting qi. Your other hand, and it doesn't matter which, I'm using my right hand above, but it could have been my left. You take your other hand and you place it again on the spine, ideally with the center of the hand on the spine itself, opposite the navel. Again, you don't have to be anatomically exact because your palm can cover a broad area. Here I am touching the Ming Men, or gate of life. This is an acupuncture point that controls and balances the functioning of the kidneys and adrenal glands according to Chinese medicine. So one hand at the Mingmen gate of life, the other hand at Da Chui under the seventh cervical vertebrae, both hands on the spine itself, and then what do? Reach the qi, reach through to the life current, be present. Notice places of heat or cold. Is one hand warmer than the other? Does the energy feel subjectively more full in one place than the other? All of these sensations are important because they begin your assessment. This is a place where you are getting an intuitive impression of your partner's overall sense of energy, the overall health or balance of the qi. So just listen. You would keep the hands here whatever length of time you need to get your chi impression, your sense of the balance of the life energy. From the hands on the spine assessment, we go directly into intuitive assessment to give some more details about the state of your partner's chi. So to practice this method, just take your hands, we use both hands, and basically follow the contours of the energy field around the entire body, taking intuitive note of what you're sensing. Remember, you're reaching in for the chi, but not only the chi of internal organs, also the chi of the skin itself, of muscles, tendons, bones, nerves, all of the structures and tissues of the body. You're sensing the chi, the energy of those areas, and noting what your intuition tells you. For instance, it's very common to feel some parts of the body a little bit warmer or cooler. Warmth means more energy, coolness generally less energy. You might have some intuitive impression that certain area feels stuck, that your hand doesn't move as smoothly through those places, or other places where the hand seems to move too smoothly, as though the energy is not accumulating, is not held there. For now, don't worry about the meaning of the different sensations you have, because this really is an intuitive assessment. Just make a mental note of whatever it is you're sensing. You do the entire body, back and front and sides. Don't forget the head and the eyes, the ears. For instance, if someone had a problem with the jaw, with TMJ, you might sense something there. Don't forget the neck. Look through the body to the internal organs. We are assessing the chi, the energy of the body. Don't forget to stay connected. Maintain the elements of the Qigong stance of power, keeping the caring and compassionate attitude so that even in your assessment, there is treatment taking place. Anytime you sense the energy, you are healing. It's impossible to separate assessment from healing, because when you make contact with that life energy, there is a rebalancing of the energy that you're sensing. And very importantly, your chi field does communicate information, so you want to keep that caring feeling constant throughout all aspects of assessment and treatment. There's no particular order for the assessment. You can start from any part of the body. If you feel there's a need to sense especially the bones or joints, you can spend more time there if you felt something blocked. If there are any places where the sensation was different, relative to other people you've done intuitive assessment or relative to other areas on the same person's body, you might go back to those areas and again, just listen. Notice what feels different. What's your intuitive sense of what's happening there? Is there more energy? Is there less? Does it seem hot or cold? And it's very important that you do make a mental note of all of these different sensations, because in the next stage of assessment, we're going to tune in much more specifically to different parts of the body to get more concrete information. And once you've completed your intuitive assessment and made a mental note of the information you need to remember, then you can bring your hands down to your side, and we're ready to move on to the next method, which is called differential assessment. This will give us much more specific information. Differential assessment is the way that you can get the most detail about the qi and the state of balance of the energy of the internal organs. This particular method actually comes from a Taoist monastery in southern China. When we practice the differential assessment, I'd like you to remember three qualities that we are looking for. The first is temperature. That is, do you feel that the energy of the organ you are sensing is hot or cold, cool or warm, both relative to other internal organs and to other people that you have practiced assessment on? So again, the first quality is temperature. The second is rate. By rate, I mean your sense of pulsing or vibration. Generally, we're looking for a feeling of fluidity of energy. Now, that is sensed subjectively as a feeling of gentle pulsing of the energy, almost as if you're listening to an energetic heartbeat. So think of these again: temperature, rate, and the third quality is just called subjective quality. Subjective quality can be anything and everything. For example, you might feel that the energy over an internal organ is cheesy and stuck. Or you might feel that it's too superficial, that the energy feels healthy on the surface, but imbalanced. The chi is not as clear underneath. Or you might feel that the energy is too sunk and not available to you. So again, the three things we are looking for are temperature, rate, and subjective quality. Now, what do these things mean? Basically, if you feel too much heat, it means there's too much energy. It's too yang. If you feel too much cold, again, relative to other parts of the body or to other people that you've worked on, then it would suggest depletion or weakness. This could be depletion of qi in an organ. It could be over a portion of the body. But again, hot or cold is basically too much or too little, too yang or too yin. Rate, again, is the vibratory quality. We're looking for a feeling of gentle vibration, which is a sign of health. And after rate, quality, subjective quality, whatever the qi means to you as the healer. What are you sensing? Does it feel healthy? Does it feel balanced? Does it feel imbalanced? And in what way? Even your images, the images you form in your mind as you're doing the assessment, are also important and may be relevant. And as before with the intuitive assessment, try to make a mental note of everything you are becoming aware of. All of this gives you information. And once you're finished with the intuitive assessment, you think again of what you sensed when your hands were on the spine, when you did the intuitive assessment and the differential. Bring all of that together, and that creates a complete picture of the state of that person's qi and will give you the relevant information for treatment. When you practice differential assessment, we assess the qi of a woman on her right side. You'll see in a moment what that means. We assess the qi of a man on his left. We are going to be using specific places on the fingers and toes to tune in to the energy of corresponding internal organs. Basically, the meridians, the energy vessels that feed the various organs, have their endings on the fingers and toes. And when you hold lightly the end of a finger or toe, you can tune in to the energy of the corresponding organ. You don't have to be on an exact acupuncture point on the finger or toe, because the energy of the corresponding organ permeates the entire fingertip or toe tip. So let's see how we practice this. First, if I'm going to assess the energy of the lungs, I'm going to hold my partner's thumb. In the case of a woman, the right thumb. If I were treating a man, the left thumb. It doesn't matter which hand I use to lightly hold my partner's thumb. So if I hold her right thumb, my other hand, now this hand tunes me into the chi of the lungs. My other hand goes to the actual internal organ. And one of the beauties, I think, of this technique is that you don't have to know the acupuncture meridians because the assessment takes place over the actual organ. The hand that's holding the finger or the toe tunes me into the meridian, and that's all I really need to know about the meridian for this method of assessment. Now, as my other hand palpates the energy field around the lungs themselves, I'm looking for the temperature. Is it relatively warm or cool? The rate. Do I feel any pulsing? Can I sense the pulse of the energy, the pulse of the chi? And what is the quality of what I'm sensing? Remember to keep that caring attitude and grounded feeling so that your assessment, your sensing of the chi, also begins the treatment. Once you have a clear picture in your mind, and the information is also as much as you're going to get, then we move on to the next assessment point, and that's going to be the tip of the index finger. Again, we're lightly holding the nail between 2 or 3 of your fingers. It doesn't matter which fingers you are using to hold your partner's finger, nor which hand you are using. What matters is that for a woman, you are holding the right hand. The index finger corresponds to the large intestine. So now I'm tuned into the large intestine by holding the end of the finger. My other hand goes to the large intestine, and I just want to sense the energy, tune into the chi of the large intestine, and in my assessment, I look for temperature, hot or cold, and degree of hot or cold, the rate or vibration, the energy pulse, and the quality. For instance, if there were a problem with the chi of the intestine, I might sense it with the quality. Then we go to the next finger, the middle finger. Again, I'm holding the end of the finger, not on any particular point. This third finger relates to the heart pericardium. As I hold the middle finger, my other hand goes to the heart. There are going to be 2 areas on the hand that help me tune into the energy of the heart. There's this one on the middle finger for the pericardium, and later I'll be demonstrating another heart assessment area. So this is the pericardium, and again, temperature, rate, and quality. And then while holding the same place, third finger, I go to the reproductive system. This is the same point on the hand. That has not changed, but that same end of the middle finger is used for both pericardium and reproductive system, the uterus and ovaries, and in a man, you would be sensing the prostate. So again, that middle finger was both pericardium and the reproductive system. Now I go to the ring finger, lightly holding the end of the finger to tune into the appropriate meridians and internal organs. My other hand goes to the thyroid. And this is an important area where you might sense too much or too little qi, warmth or coolness. This may correspond to conditions that in Western medicine would be called hyperthyroid or hypothyroid, which is basically, from the Chinese viewpoint, too much energy or too little. Sensing the thyroid gland, temperature, rate, and quality. And then, again, this is an assessment point on the hand that is used for two areas. While still holding the ring finger, my other hand assesses the energy of intuition, and that is sensed between the eyebrows, the so-called third eye. Temperature, rate, and quality of the intuition. Does it feel smooth? Does it feel even? Does it feel slightly warm, which is generally an indication of health? Is it cool, which might mean that the intuition is not working up to its optimal level? And then finally, I go to the little finger, and this area on the little finger again is used for two parts of the body. It is the way to tune into the energy of the heart, this time not just the pericardium, but the entire heart. Looking inside with your mind, sensing the temperature, rate, and quality. And then the small intestine. I'm still holding the little finger. My other hand is now sensing temperature, rate, and quality of the small intestine. Take a moment to put together the picture in your mind, remembering what you sensed of each of the internal organs. We held the thumb, which was lungs, index finger, large intestine, middle finger, pericardium and reproductive system, ring finger, thyroid and third eye or intuition, little finger, small intestine, and heart. Now we go to the foot to complete our assessment, our picture of the qi of your partner. And as with the hand, each toe corresponds to an internal organ because the meridian connected to that organ, the energy vessel that feeds that organ, ends at a particular toe tip. As before, you would hold the right toe for a woman, the left toe to assess the qi of a man. We start with the big toe, which is connected to the energy of the liver and the spleen. So as you hold the tip of the big toe, and it doesn't matter which hand you are using to connect with the meridian, nor does it matter which fingers you use to hold the toe tip. And remember, we're not touching an acupuncture point. The energy of that meridian and that organ permeates the entire toe tip. So you don't have to know the acupuncture points to practice this method. Lightly hold the toe tip. Your other hand goes to the liver, where you assess the qi of the liver. And you're looking for temperature, energy pulse or rate, and the quality of the qi. Once you have your reading on the liver, the same assessment area on the big toe is used to tune into the energy of the spleen. So the only hand that needs to move is the hand that was sensing the energy on your partner's body. So now we go over to the spleen. Temperature, hot or cold, energy pulse or rate, and quality. Now we're ready to move on to the next toe, the second toe, which tunes us into the energy of the stomach. So while I hold the tip of the toe, not on any particular point, to tune into the meridian and the organ, my other hand goes to the stomach, keeping the hand always at a distance that allows you as the healer to sense the energy most clearly. The fact that my hand is this distance from my partner's body doesn't mean that that will be the same if you are practicing on someone. Maybe for you, you will feel the energy more clearly from this distance or from closer in. That can vary from day to day according to the chi of the person you are treating. Temperature, rate, and quality of the chi of the stomach. Now, the next toe, the third toe, is not used in this assessment method. The tip of this toe relates to blood circulation, to the circulatory system, but we don't have any particular organ or area to sense in order to interpret the chi of the circulatory system. Remember, we've already assessed the chi of the heart through two assessment areas on the hand. So we're going to move directly to the fourth toe next to the little toe. While holding the toe tip, we are tuning in to the gallbladder. So the other hand goes to the gallbladder. At whatever distance allows you to sense the chi. Temperature, rate, and quality of the energy in and around the gallbladder. Then the little toe is the chi of the bladder. So the meridian ends there. The chi of the bladder permeates the end of that toe while lightly holding the tip of the little toe. The other hand goes to the bladder. And again, sensing the chi of the bladder, temperature, hot or cold, the energy rate or pulse of the chi, and the quality. The last assessment area in this method is for the kidneys. However, here we do go to a more specific acupuncture point rather than a toe tip. To tune into the energy of the kidneys, one of your hands will lightly touch the Yongchuan point. Yongchuan means bubbling well or bubbling spring. It's the very first point on the kidney meridian. Now here's how you find the point. If you take the foot and bend the toes down towards the heel, there's a depression formed in the foot which is 1/3 of the way from the base of the toes to the heel. At that depression, you are on the bubbling well or bubbling spring acupuncture point. Then to assess the chi of the kidneys, find a comfortable position where you can stay in touch with the bubbling well acupuncture point. And by the way, once you get familiar with where this point is, you won't have to ask your partner to bend the toes first. You can go directly to the point. It's only in the beginning, to become familiar with it, that you need to go through that process. So one hand is on the bubbling well point. Now you'll need to stand up and reach around to the kidneys. And just as before, my other hand is actually doing the assessment. My hand on the acupuncture point tunes into the kidney meridian. My other hand senses the temperature, rate, and quality of the chi of the kidneys. Make sure that with all of these internal organs, you visualize the organ in the body. Might be helpful to get an anatomy chart or an anatomy model and familiarize yourself with where that organ actually is. You don't have to be anatomically correct, but it is definitely helpful. The important point is to tune into the energy of the meridian, and your other hand goes over the organ. Even if you are a little bit off in your assessment area, the fact that you're tuning into the meridian with the other hand will still help you to sense the chi of that organ. But by all means, get an anatomy book or chart and try to be as close to the actual anatomical location as possible. Now let's review the differential assessment. And if you have a partner and can follow along at the same time, so much the better. In this case, since a man is being treated, we always assess on the left side. Starting with the thumb, we tune into the energy of the lungs. While holding the thumb with one hand, the other hand goes to the lungs and sensing the temperature, rate, and quality. Remember to allow your hand to move over the entire lung area, including the lower lobe of the lungs. And once you have the reading in your hand, then you go to the next finger, which is the index finger. And as you hold lightly there, the left hand for a man, your other hand will go to the large intestine. And you will follow around the large intestine, sensing the chi of the large intestine. Temperature, hot or cold, the rate, the energy pulse, the sense of vibration, and the subjective quality of that organ. We're doing this a little bit more quickly now, just to review the techniques. When you practice, normally you want to spend as much time as you need to get an accurate reading or as much information as you're able to receive. Going to the next finger, the middle finger, this tunes us into the energy of the pericardium. And then while holding still the third finger, the same tuning in place for the meridian, the assessing hand, the sensing hand, goes to the reproductive system. For a man, you would be sensing the prostate. If there's too much chi, too much energy in the prostate, if there's a tendency towards inflammation or excess, then this would be registered as warmth, or perhaps as a subjective sense of the hand pushing away. So you might feel depletion or excess in terms of temperature or in terms of quality. But again, we're looking at temperature, rate, and quality. Now we go to the next finger, and that is the ring finger. And here we tune in to the energy of the thyroid. While holding the hand over the thyroid glands, we're sensing the temperature, rate, and quality. Looking at the yin and the yang, insufficiency or excess, coolness or warmth. And holding the same assessment area, we go up to the third eye. And here we are sensing the power or energy of intuition. This is rather unusual. Most systems of Chinese medicine or Qigong assessment do not have a place to sense the intuition. But we do have that in this style. So we're still holding the ring finger, but the hand is now sensing the energy between the eyebrows. This is an area that in Chinese is called the upper dantian, the upper elixir field. Remember earlier I spoke about the lower elixir field, the lower energy center in the lower abdomen. Well, this upper elixir field stores the energy of intuition. And again, temperature, rate, and quality. And now we go to the little finger, and while holding the end of the left little finger, The other hand goes to the heart. So here we're sensing the entire internal organ of the heart, feeling the chi of the heart, the chambers of the heart, the valves, the entire heart, and looking at the temperature, rate, and quality to assess the chi of the heart. And while still holding the little finger, we're sensing the energy of the small intestine. So that same assessment area on the little finger is used to tune into the energy of the heart and the small intestine. It doesn't matter which you do first. The order is not important. So here she's sensing the chi of the small intestine, temperature, rate, and quality. And then we're ready to move on to the remaining internal organs, which we tune into through the toes. Now remember, throughout this assessment, whether you are sensing the energy or later if you're treating, you want to maintain a caring and compassionate attitude and also inner quiet, because that will help your partner to relax. Now as you hold the big toe, your hand goes to the liver. Notice the quality of the liver chi, temperature, rate, and quality. If the liver is not performing its function of spreading the chi evenly through the body, you might sense that in terms of quality. While still holding the big toe, we now tune into the spleen. And once again, the order is not important. If you want to start with the spleen and then go to the liver, that's fine. And the spleen, for a reminder, is that spongy organ a little bit behind and at the side of the stomach. And that's it. And sensing the temperature, rate, and quality of the spleen. If the spleen isn't performing its function of extracting chi from food, you might sense that as a qualitative difference between a healthy spleen and an unhealthy spleen, or sensing the difference between one organ and another on the same person that you're treating or that you're assessing. And moving on to the second toe, this connects us with the chi of the stomach, so the hand goes to the stomach, temperature, rate, and quality. And then remember, the next toe we don't use, that's the toe which relates to blood circulation. So we don't actually tune in there. There's no particular organ or area to sense the temperature, rate, and quality of blood circulation. We go to the fourth toe, which is gallbladder. And there we're over the gallbladder area, and again sensing temperature, rate, and quality. Remember, there are so many things that can affect the chi. When you're sensing the quality, sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I sensing something that's due to diet, because of emotions? Is it something just physical from tension? All of these things you will get more information about with continued practice. You'll find more and more as you practice, the quality of information you get and the detail becomes more and more accurate and refined. Then we go to the little toe, and little toe is for the bladder. Even here, sometimes you have to ask yourself, what are you really sensing? Because the bladder feels relatively full. It could mean that the bladder is full, not that there's anything wrong with the chi of the bladder. On the other hand, if you feel excess heat, it could be a sign of too much hot chi in the bladder, which may correspond to what in Western medicine would be considered a bladder infection. But here we don't think about infection or disease, rather imbalance of the qi, and that's what we're trying to treat. And now we go to the last assessment area, which is the bubbling well or bubbling spring point. Remember, that was on the bottom of the foot. When your partner bends his foot by moving the toes towards the heel, there's a depression that's formed, which is about 1/3 of the way down from the bottom of the toes to the heel. And that's it, right there. That's the bubbling well or bubbling spring acupuncture point. You'll hold that point lightly with any of your fingers as you reach around to first one kidney and then the other, back and forth as you need to sense the qi of the kidneys. And that completes the differential assessment. But again, put everything together in your mind. Remember what you sensed when you had your hands on the spine. That was your qi impression, your first impression of the energy. And then remember how you got more information as you did the intuitive assessment. Now, maybe during the intuitive assessment, you felt a little bit of warmth over the liver. Well, then when you held the big toe, that should have corroborated and given you more information about the type of warmth, the quality of the warmth over the liver, because the differential assessment gives you more detail about what you sensed during intuitive assessment. They all work together. You go from one to the other. Hands on the spine, intuitive, and then differential. Then put the picture together in your mind. Think it through. With practice, you will get more and more information. Now that we've learned the qi assessments, how do we treat what we sense? How do we restore the balance? In order to learn this process, first we need to learn about hand positions and hand gestures. Now the hand positions, the most important one is just the open palm. We use the open palm to treat a broad area and to, in a sense, send out a wide beam of energy. If we want to send out a more intense beam of energy, we use the fingertips. And then finally, to be most intense, in a sense to send out a laser beam of healing energy, we use either the index finger, or you can use two fingers together. When these two fingers are combined with the other fingers bent back into the palm, that is a specific gesture called jianzhi, or sword finger gesture. This will send out a very intense beam of healing qi, which can be used if you're treating a very small area, if you need an intense treatment, or if you want to send qi into an acupuncture point. For those of you who know acupressure or acupuncture, you could use the sword finger gesture to transmit qi into the acupuncture needle, holding your fingers a small distance from the needle, perhaps 2 or 3 inches, or you can use the sword fingers to send qi directly into the acupuncture point. This can also be used any place that you feel there is an intense healing treatment needed. After learning the hand positions, then we move on to hand gestures or movements. Different types of movements will have different healing effect and even transmit a different type of qi. The most important hand position is called the energy field, where you have one hand in front of the distressed area, one hand behind. For example, let's say I was treating the lungs. So in my lung assessment, I found there was some imbalance in the lungs. Well, I hold one hand in front, one behind, and I simply be present and focus. If there was a problem with eye strain or headache, then again, one hand in front, one behind, and just be present, focus, make sure you're doing your own qigong. If there was a problem with a joint, let's say the elbows were painful or inflamed, then one hand in front, one behind, and just be present. This energy field treatment is the safest method. Now, please keep this method in mind, because if you're doing an assessment and you feel something is wrong with the quality of qi somewhere in the body, but you're not clear exactly what kind of treatment to use, it's not too hot It's not too cold. There isn't excess energy. There isn't insufficient energy. It just doesn't feel right. Or let's say your partner tells you, gee, this part of my body's been uncomfortable. I went to the doctor. There's nothing really wrong. I just don't feel good. Then what do? The safest treatment, the one where all you're doing is transmitting a healing message. You're not trying to change anything. That safest treatment is the energy field. One hand in front, one in back, or one to one side, one to the other. The main point is that you are doing your standing meditation, but with the person between your two hands. It's the simplest and the safest treatment to use. Please remember it. In the following methods of treatment, we use only one hand in general rather than both. Now, when you're using both hands, you're obviously treating using an energy field and again communicating healing information. However, if you are doing a treatment with only one hand, doesn't matter which, the other hand which you are not using for treatment is pointing towards the ground, energetically reaching through. In fact, what you're practicing is de qi, reaching the current of life energy, but not in a person, rather in the earth. So one hand treats, and you're going to be practicing de qi, reaching the qi with that hand near your partner's body, but the other hand is practicing de qi, reaching through to the life energy in the ground. The first method of one-hand treatment is called circling hands. The principle is very simple. When you circle your hand clockwise, that's from your vantage point as the healer, when you circle your hand clockwise, you are tonifying. Tonifying means adding energy or adding warmth. Why would you use this technique? Obviously, if you felt too much coolness in your assessment. For instance, if you felt coolness over the stomach, then you would want to add a little bit of warmth. So you would bring your hand near your partner's stomach and do a little bit of clockwise circling. Remember, you're circling with one hand, and your other hand is pointing energetically to the ground. Or as another example, if perhaps the lungs were a little bit weak because you just got over a cold or bronchitis, you might sense in your partner that the lungs feel cool. So again, clockwise circling would be indicated. And you would hold the hand over one lung, circling clockwise until you felt the energy becoming balanced, evened out, so that when you listen again, you don't feel cold any longer. And then you would go to the other lung and again circle clockwise. So clockwise is tonifying, building energy, or adding heat. The opposite hand position, counterclockwise, relative to you as the healer, is called sedating. Sedating circles remove excess heat, or another way of looking at it is that you're putting in coolness. Obviously, you use counterclockwise circling if you felt there was too much heat over a particular part of the body. Why would there be too much heat or yang? Well, typically this is because of inflammation. Any kind of condition of excess produces heat. Sometimes infection in Western terms would also be a hot condition in Chinese terms. So, for example, let's say your hand was over the liver when you did an intuitive assessment, and then you reconfirmed what you sensed in the liver when you held the big toe, and in both cases, you felt heat. What do? Counterclockwise circling, sedating circles. So if it was the liver, I would place one hand over the liver, and, of course, finding the distance that allows you to sense the energy most clearly, you then begin to use counterclockwise circling to cool down. Or another example, very commonly, when someone's been working on the computer for a long time or doing a lot of reading or studying, you might feel some eye strain. The eyes might get red, might feel inflamed. So that is, again, a hot condition, but you need to reconfirm it through your assessment. If, in fact, as your hands were over the eyes, you felt some heat, uncomfortable warmth, then that is an indication that you're going to use counterclockwise circling over the eyes. So you take your hand and over the eye, counterclockwise circling over one eye, counterclockwise circling over the other, And the same would be true for a headache, which again, if you have a pounding headache, that's generally a symptom of excess, but as the healer, you would need to confirm that first in your partner, and if you felt heat, counterclockwise circling. So those are the two circling methods. What we've covered so far is the energy field. That's your safest method. It can be used for any condition, whether there's too much hot, too much cold, excess energy, insufficient energy, stuck energy, painful energy, whatever it is, the safest is your energy field. Secondly, we've covered circling hands, clockwise to add, counterclockwise to take out, clockwise to put in heat, counterclockwise to take out excess heat. Next, we have pulsing. Pulsing is actually a beautiful gesture of the hand. It's a kind of open close, almost as if the air has some resistance to it. Imagine your hand was moving in thick water. What would happen as you push the hand and as you pull it back? The center of the hand would spread open as you push and form a hollow as you pull back. This gesture, called pulsing, as stimulation, but without excess heat. Now that's a key point, because sometimes you might sense that an internal organ or part of the body needs some extra stimulation. Maybe the circulation is slow. Perhaps you don't feel enough chi moving in that part of the body, but it's not cold. So you don't want to add heat through clockwise circling. You want to just stimulate, and there you use the pulsing. As an example, let's say that there was a problem in the wrist, maybe from some repetitive motion, there's some pain in the wrist, and you want to add some stimulation, improve circulation there, but you certainly don't want to increase inflammation. So, pulsing. As an example, I'm pulsing over the specific area. And you pulse until you sense that the energy is more smooth and balanced. Another use of pulsing, and a very important use, is pulsing over an acupuncture point. If there is a specific point or area of the body that feels stagnant, that needs to be opened up, you need more circulation, more blood flow, more chi flow, pulsing is a very safe method to use. You can use it over an acupuncture point, for example, the hugu point, which is one of the points on the large intestine meridian in this hollow. You can treat the large intestine through pulsing over this point. However, you don't have to know acupuncture to use the pulsing technique. You could use it over a sore muscle. If the shoulder was tight and you wanted to improve circulation, in a sense, give an energy hot pad. So what do? Pulse. So now we've covered energy field, circling hands. Remember, clockwise to add energy, tonifying, counterclockwise to take away or sedating. And we've done pulsing. Another method is waving. Now you saw waving earlier in the wellness treatments. Remember the waving hand, front of the body, back of the body, followed by circling over the crown of the head. You're seeing some of these motifs repeated now. Waving is generally used to smooth out the energy and also to reduce pain, because pain is usually a symptom of stagnation according to Chinese medicine. When the qi is not moving properly, when it's dammed, blocked, so you have too much energy on one side of the blockage, too little on the other, that creates a feeling of discomfort and very commonly pain. So how do we use waving over any painful area? Let's say there was pain in the neck region, tight neck muscles, and I want to reduce the pain. So then I wave over that area. You could do it on both sides of the body or from behind in the back of the neck, wherever you are sensing the blocked or stuck energy. And of course, your partner's own expression of their symptoms, their feeling of comfort or discomfort will give you an indication of where to look, where to focus when you're doing your assessment. Then if you indeed confirm that there's blockage there, stagnation, if you sense the discomfort as well, use the waving. So now we've had the energy field, circling hands, Remember both methods, counterclockwise and clockwise. We've had pulsing to stimulate, and we've had waving to smooth the energy. And we have one more, but this one is a rather specialized technique. I'll ask you to kind of keep it on the back burner unless it's really needed. And this is called scooping. Scooping is removing something energetically from the body, a kind of energy cyst. That is, when you're doing your assessment, if you feel that the energy is blocked and knotted, and you can't quite untie the knot through circling hands or through waving, and you are fairly certain that there is something energetically in there that just has to be taken out and released, then the Chinese Qigong masters use the scooping technique, and that's just what it sounds like. You're reaching in and scooping, almost like you're scooping out a little bit of earth from the ground. Scooping motion. So let me give you a hypothetical example. Let's say your partner has a feeling of discomfort in the lower torso. Now, we don't need the medical diagnosis because this is not a medical treatment. We are treating the qi. Perhaps if the person went to a physician, they might indeed find a cyst or fibroid, something of that type. But from the viewpoint of the Qigong healer, what we're looking at is the energy. So if you felt during the assessment that there was something inside that was like this energy knot, and it was not responding to your energy field or to other treatments, and you're fairly certain of the indication of something inside that needs to be taken out, then you would use scooping. For instance, if there was an energy blockage in here, now I'm not going to put intent into actually scooping because it's not really needed here, and I don't like to do this unless it's required. But I would, in that case, reach in and I would scoop out the blockage. Once you've scooped it out, just think of releasing it. Any time that you feel you've removed pathogenic qi, sick qi, toxic qi, we need to get rid of it somehow and in a gentle way. You might feel it lingering in the air. You might feel it lingering around your hands. You might feel you scooped it and it's the toxic qi is still in your palm. So what do we do with this? Well, this is really now a universal in all healing traditions. You want to discharge it from your hands. One way is to sweep your own hands, your own arms in this manner, and imagine that the unneeded energies are being released into the earth. Send it deep into the earth. Let it be burned up by the fires in the center of the earth, or turn it into compost so it helps the plants to grow. Other healers like to release the energy upwards into the sun. And again, the same kind of intent that this toxic qi is burnt up and destroyed completely, this time by the heat of the sun. How do we combine the various assessment and treatment methods together in order to treat some common problems, in order to sense what's wrong and to bring your partner back to balance? We're going to see how to do that in just a moment, but first I'd like to share with you a 2-minute quick recharge. You might find your energy is starting to run down a little bit now if you've been actually practicing these techniques with a partner. Or if you're a healthcare professional, you might need a convenient method to recharge between clients. So this is a wonderful way to bring back your healing energy, to get that energy moving in your body and projected from your hands when your energy is starting to run down. Here's how we practice. Men will take the left hand and place it about 2 or 3 inches below the navel directly on the body, with the right hand on top of the left. Women do the reverse, with the right hand 2 or 3 inches below the navel, left hand over right. Once your hands are in place, I'd like you to close your eyes and just sense how you're breathing. Let your hands give you the feedback about whether or not you are breathing abdominally. Remember, what we're looking for is when you inhale, the belly pushes out, and when you exhale, the belly retracts in. Now close your eyes. Try this with the eyes closed. So the beginning of the 2-minute recharge is inhale. Feel the way your belly pushes your hands out. And with the exhale, feel the way your hands sink back towards the spine. You want to do this until the breathing rate is really slow, relaxed, and quiet. Now, if you have a problem with balance, you can, of course, practice this with the eyes open. It's best to practice with the eyes closed, but if you need to have the eyes open, by all means do so. Once you've sensed the breath moving under your hands for about 30 seconds to a minute, bring your hands apart, about a foot to a foot and a half apart with the palms lined up, as though you're holding that energy ball, similar to the exercise we did earlier. Now, as you inhale through the nose with the tongue touching the upper palate, the arms spread apart as though you're following the opening of this energy ball between the hands. The belly is also expanding. As you exhale through the mouth, with the tongue relaxed down into the lower jaw, the back of the hands move towards each other. Feel the connection, even though it's now the back of the hands facing each other. Do you feel the energy? And then again, opening. Inhale through the nose. The tongue is touching upwards. Exhale through mouth, the belly contracting, feeling the connection through the back of the hands. In nose. Notice what's happening between the fingers from one hand to the other. Out mouth. When you practice this about 30 seconds, bring the hands back to the lower abdomen in their original position. Men with the left hand under the navel, right on top. Women with the right hand on the body, left on top. And then again, return to quiet abdominal breathing only through the nose, with the tongue touching the upper palate. And that completes the recharge. Again, it's a very simple exercise. Hands basically over the dantian, over the abdominal energy center. At first, just feeling the breath moving. Somehow having the hands resting there gives you the physical sensation of abdominal breathing and helps you breathe abdominally, helps to drop the breath down and slow down the breathing. After your hands are there for a comfortable period, then you have the inhale through nose, exhale through mouth several times. And at the end, once again, the hands return to the abdomen in the original position, and you're breathing only with the nose and breathing with the belly. Now we're ready to go back to treatment. So for example, when I did an assessment on this young man, I found a little bit of tension in the back of the neck. I felt that qualitatively. I didn't feel heat or cold. And he's also let me know that he has a little bit of tension or pain in the back of the neck. So I'm going to definitely do some treatment there. And also the energy is just a little bit low, not quite as up or yang as I would expect it to be. Maybe he's a little bit run down from schoolwork. So I want to do something to tonify, to add energy to the whole body. So here's how I'm going to start. I'm going to begin with, in a sense, the presenting symptom. I'm going to go to the back of the neck because that's where I sense the energy was blocked, and that's what I'm going to treat. I'm going to do a little bit of waving with the hand to release any pain. Some pulsing to just improve the circulation in that area. Again, this is like that energy hot pad. But it's a hot pad only in the sense that it stimulates and improves circulation without adding heat. I want to sense if it feels a little bit smoother now, not so tight. going to do a little bit of waving as well, just to smooth out the energy in general through the whole body. And a little bit from behind, again, just to smooth it out. Sometimes when you get rid of tension in one part of the body, it just shifts somewhere else. So it's a good idea, even after you release tension or pain, stagnation in one part, do a general treatment of the whole body. Notice that I'm maintaining my Qigong stance, and I've got that grounded hand reaching into the Qi of the earth while I'm doing the treatment. Now the energy feels much smoother, but I want to do something to just help build up the energy level in a gentle way, just to stabilize and build up the Qi. Well, one of the areas I can use is the Dantian, the lower abdomen, and here I'm using the energy field, one hand in front, one behind, and I'm just being present, focusing. And I feel that's really all the treatment that's necessary in this case. It's a very gentle, energetic help. Let's try another Qigong treatment for someone who might have a slightly different type of Qi imbalance. This time the assessment showed some heat over the throat. I felt some uncomfortable heat in the palm over the throat region. And I noticed when I did the differential assessment, when I held the index finger of her right hand, there was some discomfort that I sensed in the intestinal region. Well, perhaps this person had a sore throat and is having some intestinal upset that could happen as a result of antibiotics. But for whatever reason, what I'm sensing is too much heat in the throat, which indeed corresponds to the presenting symptom of sore throat. And I sensed something going on in the intestines, which my partner may or may not sense already at this time. So in this case, with the heat over the throat and the weakness and somewhat coolness in the intestines, I'm going to treat this way. Counterclockwise over the throat region. Remember, you're in the Qigong stance of power, one hand pointed towards the ground. Reducing heat, reducing inflammation. And then over the intestines, since there's a little bit of coolness, I want to do just a moment or two of clockwise circling. And that seems to already be evening out the temperature in the intestines. And then again, I'm just rechecking. And that seems fairly even. Now, when you end up having a very simple treatment, you might like to also combine this specific healing treatment with a general wellness treatment. The wellness treatment is wonderful for bringing a systemic balance, balancing the whole body, and it's so safe you can use it as a closing to any kind of specific treatment that involves counterclockwise, clockwise circling, scooping, or whatever. So at the very end, you can use the wellness waving of hands or the yin-yang meridians, front and back of the body. Any of the wellness methods we tried you can practice to close a healing treatment. Now this time in my assessment, I felt some coolness in the kidneys. The kidneys seem to be somewhat depleted, perhaps from stress. So I'm planning to do some clockwise circling over the kidneys and then close with using the energy field front and back of the lower dantian just to in general build up the energy. So I'm going to go around to the kidney area first. And I'm going to go to one kidney, doesn't matter which one you start with, and do some clockwise circling. And already there's some response, the energy is a little bit warmer. And I go to the other kidney. And there's already some response. If I was doing a full treatment, I might spend 2 or 3 minutes on each kidney, but for now, just to demonstrate, I want you to have the sense of the clockwise circling in order to add energy or to add heat to an area that you perceived as cold. Then to build up the energy in general, I'm going to place one hand in front of the lower dantian, one in back, and I'm just going to focus. Again, in order to do a full treatment, I might stand in this position for as much as 5 minutes. For now, I'd like to just give you the suggestion of what would be indicated. And because the energy was somewhat low in general, what I'd like to do in this case is do a general treatment, another wellness treatment, one that we haven't learned yet, for the entire body. This is a beautiful method that helps to smooth out and balance the qi in all of the major meridians. So we're going to start with the arms, and then the legs, and then the governing and conception vessel, the yang meridian that goes up the back and the yin meridian that goes down the front. Then I'm going to be doing a treatment on the crown of the head, and then here at the third eye, and returning again to the dantian. You can add this to your repertoire of wellness methods. It's one of the most wonderful and relaxing treatments for the entire body. So I'm going to have her reposition herself a little bit back so I can get more easily to the meridians of the arms and the legs. And the arms are positioned on the lap, resting sideways. It's also possible to do this on the massage table with the person supine lying down. And to follow the direction of the meridian, I'm going to run my hand up along the outside of the arm and then down the inside. So we're going up the outside, down the inside. Even if you can't actually reach all the way around to the inside of the arm, just have the intention that your qi is reaching the inside of the arm. Usually I do about 10 circles, or until I perceive the energy as smooth. Then the same thing on the other arm. Up the outside, use your intent, your will, to imagine the qi going down the inside of the arm and up the outside, even if you can't fully reach to the outside of the arm. Your qi will follow your intent. And once I perceive it as smooth, now I go to the legs, going up the inside of one leg and down along the outside. So we're going up the inside of the leg, following the direction of energy flow through the meridians, through the energy vessels, down the outside of the leg. You don't have to be over any particular meridian when you're doing this. It's just in general, down the outside, up the inside, to encourage smooth energy flow. And then the other leg, up the inside and down the outside. Again, I usually do about 10 cycles, 10 circles, or until I perceive the energy as smooth. Next, to encourage a stronger flow of qi in the spine and around the major energy circuit, up the back and down the front, through the yang and the yin, I change to the next technique, in which one hand is placed over the crown of the head. The other palm is down by the sacrum, the lower back. My lower hand is going to circle several times one way. It doesn't matter which direction you start. Right now I'm circling clockwise. Then I ask my partner to inhale slowly through the nose. Now, as she inhales through the nose, I'm tracking the movement of qi up the spine to the crown of the head. And now I switch and I tell my partner, exhale through the mouth gently. And now I help guide the qi down the front. Remind your partner now to breathe naturally as you go back to the original starting position. Don't pull the qi up around opposite to the normal circuit. Just start again from the beginning posture, but now my lower hand, instead of circling clockwise, is going to circle counterclockwise, down by the sacrum. Your partner is breathing naturally, and then again to encourage qi flow through the major meridians, the major yang and yin meridians in the body. Tell your partner to inhale slowly. So now inhale slowly through the nose and exhale through mouth. Breathe naturally. And inhale through nose. That's it. Exhale through mouth. Natural breathing. Inhale through nose. Exhale, mouth. Natural breathing. Again, once I've done this about 10 times or until I feel the energy is smooth, I go on to the next healing gesture. One hand, it doesn't matter which hand, over the crown of your partner's head. And you're going to do several circles one way, starting counterclockwise, and several circles clockwise. This is to help spiral qi through the body vertically. Then one hand in front of the space between the eyebrows, one hand behind, to stimulate the brain and intuition. Your partner is still breathing naturally. The only time she had the coordinated breath was when I was attempting to balance the qi of the yang and yin meridians up the back and down the front. The rest of the time, the breathing is quiet, relaxed, and natural. And after holding this position for about 30 seconds, or until you sense that your partner has received whatever she's needing to receive at that time. We close the treatment with the last healing gesture, and that is the dantian, the lower energy field, the lower energy center. Quietly focusing. And that closes the all-meridian wellness treatment, which again I sometimes like to use as a closing after I've treated certain specific problems with the various therapeutic gestures. Again, I first treated the arms, up the outside of the arms, down the inside, one arm and then the next. It doesn't matter whether you start with the right or the left. Then I treated one leg and then the other leg, up the inside of the leg, down the outside, up the inside, down the outside. Then I did the gesture for the back, and that was one hand over the crown of the head, one on the lower back. I circled the lower hand by the sacrum, one way, first counterclockwise or clockwise, it doesn't matter which way you start. Then I asked my partner to inhale. I tracked the energy up and then exhale through mouth. Then I started again, this time circling the lower hand the opposite direction. And I asked my partner, inhale through nose, sensing the energy rising up the spine, and exhale through mouth, and breathing naturally, and reversing the direction, and so on. After that, then one hand over the crown, several circles counterclockwise, several circles clockwise. That's to help stimulate a flow of qi up and down through the body. Then one hand in front of the third eye, between the eyebrows, one behind, focusing for several seconds, as long as you feel is necessary, to stimulate the brain and intuition. Then ending with the grounding, with the hands at the lower abdomen, the dantian energy center. Please remember that these are complementary healing techniques that can be combined with any other healing method, but they should never substitute for necessary medical treatment. If you are a physician, you can combine the information you receive from qi assessment with what you learn from standard diagnostic procedures, such as blood work or x-rays. If you are an acupuncturist, qi healing can confirm and clarify your Chinese medical diagnosis. It can also increase the power of your acupuncture or your treatment. If you are a massage therapist, you can increase the sensitivity and energy of your healing techniques. And very importantly, if you are not a healthcare provider, qi healing helps you take charge of your own health, and it gives you wonderful tools to be of help to others. In closing, I want to share with you a teaching from one of my own instructors, Dr. Wang Kangsai, an acupuncturist and Taoist master from the sacred mountains of southern China. He once said to me, "When I insert an acupuncture needle, the needle is not the needle. My whole body is the needle. My body is an antenna for the universal qi of heaven and earth. That is an antenna for the energies of life." Think of this teaching when you practice qi healing. The source of healing power, and perhaps even the source of healing information, is beyond the ego, beyond the personal self. Trust in that source. It's sometimes called God, the divine, the Tao. The more you trust in that source of healing, the more your very presence will be healing.